Welcome back, children. We will move on to the new topic of the chapter, that is growth and the changing structure of employment. And two more topics we will be discussing in this video, that is casualization along with informalization of workforce. Now let us see what is this changing structure of employment. Growth of employment and GDP. Growth of employment and GDP, employment of laborers and gross domestic product. You know what is a gross domestic product? The total value of all goods and services produced in the country during an accounting year is known as GDP. Now, during 1950-2010, the GDP of India grew positively and was higher than employment. We are comparing the growth of employment and GDP in this topic. Growth of employment and GDP. Now, as per the study, during 1950 to 2010, during this time period, the GDP of India was growing positively and was higher than employment. So, during this time period, GDP was higher and employment was lesser. Value of goods and services, production of goods and services was increasing, but employment opportunities were less. Employment was very less. That may be due to the existing technology. With existing technology, the production might have increased, then giving more and more hours of work for the laborers, the production might have increased. So many reasons are there behind that. So with the existing technology, more should have been produced, and giving more working hours, the production might have increased. Therefore, the new employment opportunities are restricted over there. So, but somehow with this we are able to achieve a higher growth in the GDP, but less employment. Employment growth rate was less. That is what is given here. In 1950-2010, GDP of India grew positively, but employment growth rate was a bit lesser than GDP. Now, there was a fluctuation in the growth of GDP, but employment grew at a rate not more than 2%. There was a higher fluctuation in the growth rate of GDP. GDP was increasing at a higher rate. That is what I told. The production of goods and services increased. That may be due to the production of more goods with the existing technology, or it can be due to the increase in the working hours of the existing laborers. The employment opportunities was very less. The employment growth rate was less than 2%. It was not more than 2%, but there was a higher fluctuation or higher growth rate in GDP. So, higher growth rate in GDP was experienced and employment grew at a rate not more than 2%. So, what is the conclusion that we can draw here? Both growth rate of employment and GDP was not going hand in hand. Instead of that, the GDP growth rate was higher and the growth rate of employment was lesser. In 1990s, the employment growth rate started declining. In 1990s, to be noted, employment growth rate started declining and reached the level where India was at the early stages of planning. So, in 1990s, the growth rate of employment started declining and we went back to the stage where India started with the planning period. So, the growth rate of employment became very, very less. So, we can find a wide fluctuation in the growth rate of GDP and in the growth rate of employment. The gap between the growth of GDP and employment was widening. So, definitely it will get widened, isn't it? So, the gap between the GDP and employment growth rate was widening, and this is termed as jobless growth. Growth is happening in GDP, but in employment, no growth. So, jobless growth. So, employment opportunities are not being created, it is declining, but GDP, considerable increase in the GDP could be experienced. So, that is termed as jobless growth. Growth is there without the job, without employment. Growth is there. How growth is possible? Due to the growth in GDP. So, the growth is without employment. That is known as jobless growth. Now, what is jobless growth? It can be defined as follows. Jobless growth is a situation where economy is able to produce more goods and services without a proportionate increase in the employment opportunities. There is no proportionate increase in the employment opportunities, but the economy is able to produce more goods and services. So there are so many reasons behind that. One or two reasons which I have mentioned you is with regard to more production with the existing technology, then due to the application of more technology, and maybe due to the increase in the working hours of the existing laborers. So these are the reasons for the less growth of employment. So GDP is growing on one side, but growth of employment is less. So we can define the jobless growth as a situation where economy is able to produce more goods and services without the proportionate increase in the employment opportunities. That is why it is termed as jobless growth. There is growth, but it is jobless growth. Now we will move on to the next topic, that is changing structure of employment. In 1972-73, 74.3% of workforce are engaged in primary sector. Now in 2011-2012, you can see that from 74.3%, it has declined to 48.9%. So in the year 1972-73, 74.3% of people were engaged in the agricultural sector. But as per the study of 2011-12, only 48.9% of people are involved in the agricultural sector. So what can you understand from this? There is a considerable increase in the shift of workforce from agricultural sector to the other sectors. Why? Because the scope for the revenue from the agricultural sector was less. That was the reason for the shift from the agricultural sector to the industrial and service sector. That is why we can find in 1972-73, with 74.3% of the workforce engaged in the primary sector or agricultural sector has declined to 48.9% in 2011-2012. So that is the reason, the less scope for earning the income from the agricultural sector, an increase in the disguised unemployment, all these are the reasons by which the people has shifted from agricultural sector to other sectors. Now, secondary and service sector, they are showing a promising future for Indian workforce because the share of these sectors are increasing. Therefore, we can find more and more people to shift from the agricultural sector to the industrial sector. So, they are the promising sectors for the Indian workforce. Next, we will move on to casualisation of workforce. So, I hope the topic which we have discussed now is very clear. Changing structure of employment. How people are shifting from one sector to the other sector. This especially happens in primary sector. There was a considerable shift in the workforce from the primary sector to the other two sectors such as industrial and service sector. And industrial and service sector are also showing a promising future for Indian workforce. That means we can expect more and more people to divert from the agricultural sector to the industrial and service sector. Now we will move on to the next topic, that is casualisation of workforce. What is this casualisation of workforce? It is one of the major problems which is faced by Indian economy. Let us see what is that. From 1972 to 2012, there has been a considerable shift from self-employment and regular salaried employment to casual labor. That means more and more number of people began to jump from the regular salaried employment and the self-employment to casual labor. That is known as casualisation of workforce. More and more people were shifting from self-employment and regular salaried employment to casual workers. This is known as casualisation of workforce. Now, let us see what are the reasons for the casualization of workforce. Okay, before that we can see that self-employment. Let us learn this with the help of figures. So what is casualization of workforce? The shift from self-employment and regular salaried employment to casual labor. How can a regular salaried person shift to a casual labor? A regular salaried person might have got the job opportunity for a short period of time, not for a long period of time. So in that case, if that job is over, if the time period is over, he may shift to casual labor or casual workforce because he can't find opportunity in any other areas. So he may not have that much of fund to engage in self-employment. So automatically that particular person, after the time period gets over, he may shift to casual workforce. That is the main reason which we can say that for why a person is shifting from regular salaried to casual labor force. Now let us learn this with the help of a figure. Self-employment has declined from 61.4% in 1972 to 73 to 52% in 2011-12. That means those people who were doing self-employment with 61.4%, they have shifted to other area, especially to the casual workforce, and that percentage has come down to 52%. So this itself is a clear picture which shows the shift of the people from self-employment to casual workforce. Now regular salaried employees, a marginal increase has happened in the case of regular salaried employees from 15.4 to 18% in 2011-12. So those who are regular salaried employees, only a small increase in their percentage can be experienced from 15.4 in 1972 to 73. From that time period, from 15.4, the people who are doing the regular salaried work has increased only to 18% in 2011-12. It is a very pathetic figure. And in between, those who are doing the regular salaried has shifted to casual workforce also. I have mentioned the reason for that just now. Now, casual workers have experienced an increase. There is an increase in the casual workforce from 23.2% in 1972-73 to 30% in 2011-12. So in 1972-73 the casual workforce was 23.2, but in 2011-12 the number has increased to 30%. So what does this mean? Lot of people are shifting from regular salaried employment and the self-employment to casual labor. This is known as the casualization of workforce. Okay, from self-employment people have shifted because of their decrease in the fund, and from the regular salaried employees also the people might have shifted to casual workforce, and I have mentioned the reason for that. Anyway, a lot of people has been shifting from regular salaried and the self-employment to casual workforce. This is known as casualization of labor force, and it is a major problem that is faced by India. Now let us see what are the reasons for the casualization. First reason is low scope for earnings from agricultural sector or agricultural activities. What kind of unemployment is found in the agricultural activities? The person who is doing the cultivation in his own land, he is doing a self-employment. So from that self-employment, the earning that he is getting, the income that he is getting may not be up to his expectation. Therefore, he is not tempted to continue with that work again. Therefore, he will not be doing his farm work again and he will be shifting to casual work. That is why the casualization of workforce is increasing day by day. So the first reason of casualization is low scope of earnings from agricultural activities. Next one is displacement of workers from large industries in the urban areas. In the urban areas where there are large number of industries, industries may throw out the workers due to the excess numbers. So, these people cannot find a job. So, they may take up job as casual workers. That is the reason for casualization of workforce. Then that means there is no job security. Then comes the next, slow growth of employment in the organized sector. In organized sector there is a slow growth rate. Therefore, that many number of laborers will not be required in the organized sector. So, the excess of workers may be thrown out. So, those workers will be moving on to casual workers. Next one is increase in the demand for casual laborers are expanding due to the construction works and services. Last point is due to the excess demand of casual workers. Nowadays there is excess demand for casual workers because of increasing works in the field of construction. The construction works we can find a lot of people who are doing the casual work. So, that is also a reason for the casualization of labor force. So, the reasons for the casualization of labor force is low scope of earnings from agricultural activities, displacement of workers from large industries in urban areas, then slow growth of employment in the organized sector, and increase in the demand for casual laborers due to expanding construction trade and service. Especially in the urban areas we can find lot of industries are coming out every day. Therefore, in the construction sites you can find lot of casual workers. This is a very important reason for increasing casualization of labor. So, due to this casualization of labors, the workers are shifted from rural areas as well as to the urban areas. So, what happens? The population of the urban areas will go on increasing. Slums will get increased. Then informalization of Indian workforce. Next topic is informalization of workforce. So, once again I repeat, casualization of workforce means the shift of the people from regular salaried employment and self-employment to casual work. Next topic is informalization of Indian workforce. What is this informalization of Indian workforce? In general we can say the number of workforce in the informal sector. You have learned about formal sector and informal sector in class 10 in a detailed manner. So, the workforce in our country in the informal sector is more when compared to the total people who are working, total number of people who are working in our country. That is known as informalization. Now, let us see some topics in general before moving on to informalization of workforce. Even after 55 years of planned development, 3/5 of Indian workforce depends on agricultural sector. Even after 55 years of planned development, 3/4 of the Indian workforce is still depending on agricultural sector. Next is quality of employment has deteriorated. What is this quality of employment? If a person needs to get stick on to a particular employment, he should get social security benefits. Even after working a long time in a particular sector or an institution, if that person is not getting the provident fund, pension or any maternity benefit, he or she will not be willing to continue in that particular institution. So, that is the reason there is the quality of employment has deteriorated. So, it means that is the reason we say quality of employment has deteriorated. Next, private sector employees are getting low salary as compared to the workers in the public sector. In the private sector, the people are getting the less salary when compared to the people who are working in the public sector. They are doing the same job, the nature of the job will be the same, but the people who are working in the private sector, they are getting less income than the people who are working in the public sector. wide difference is there. So these are the major problems which are existing in the employment sector in our country. Once again, even after 55 years of planned development, 3/5 of the Indian workforce depends on agricultural sector. The quality of employment is deteriorating. That means a person who is working in an institution for a long time, will expect some kind of social security benefit. If that is not given to him, he or she will not be willing to continue with that particular institution. Then comes the private sector employees are getting low salary as compared to the workers in the public sector. These are the major problems that are existing in the employment sector. Now, in India, proportion of workforce in the informal sector to the total workforce is increasing. This is called informalization of workforce. Now, in India, the people who are working in the informal sector, its number is more than comparing to the total workforce. That is known as informalization of workforce. Now, what is the meaning of people working in informal sector? How many sectors are there in employment sector? One is formal sector and another is informal sector. And this is the next topic that we are going to continue in the next